Hello and welcome back to another interesting analyst session by Vajiram and Ravi. Today we are going to comprehensively discuss 7 articles under 2 sections. These articles have been taken from the Indian Express and the Hindu. Section A, wherein we will analyze 2 articles in depth. First of them is about India and Bangladesh relations, current progress in it, the ongoing challenges and the measures that are needed to strengthen the relations. Second article is on the need for rural development, steps taken so far, various obstacles that need to be addressed and the way forward for the same. Next, in the section B, which is the simplified section, we will take another 5 articles along with the value addition. This shall help you in your upcoming prelims. So stay tuned. So starting with first article of the day, which is about India-Bangladesh relations. So there is a need to set the context in the place first of all. We see the recently Foreign Secretary has also visited Bangladesh to talk about and to have a dialogue on India-Bangladesh relations and how to improve them, how to strengthen them. But we have to understand the recent context. We saw the recent fall in the aftermath of fall of Sheikh Hasina's government. We saw increasing incidents of attacks on minorities. Also, we saw there was a recent arrest of Chinmoy Krishnadas, which has escalated and led to the slump in the relations in the case of India-Bangladesh. So with this background, we see what is the significance of this relationship, how it considers India and its neighborhood relations, and what can we do to improve it. So beginning with the significance, how Bangladesh and India are significant to each other. They are, of course, no doubt, our neighbors. And starting with the geostrategic importance, we need to understand that it is India's eastern neighbor located on the eastern territory of India. It has an access to Bay of Bengal, which India also has. However, it increases the connectivity of India to South Asia and Southeastern Asian nations. So that being said, if we are talking about, as long as we are sticking and talking about geostrategic importance, there is also an angle of China's presence. With increased investment, with increased connectivity project and development of infrastructure in Bangladesh by China in the form of Belt and Road initiatives, this has increased the concerns in India's quarters also. Then there is economic, from the sector of economic segment, there is also, we can talk about the significance of India and Bangladesh ties. We have so far, or probably in 2021-22, we have been able to cross the US dollars, in terms of US dollars, 18 billion US dollars target. So this talks volume about the trade agreement and the trade connections that we have. Apart from it, India and Bangladesh also share cultural, traditional and historical relationship. Right from its independence in 1947, both countries have shared these kind of traditions. Then in Liberation War, that took place in 1971, which is also celebrated by the name of Vijay Diwas in India. So it shared history, like I said, culture and heritage. Then we have Ranbir Bungalow Temple and Bhoj Vihara in Bangladesh also, which caters to the Indian origin population or Hindus in Bangladesh. There are a lot of segment and huge population of Indian origin people living in Bangladesh. So there are concerns that needs to be addressed. Then there is an angle of geopolitical concerns. There are issues, internal security issues such as counter-terrorism, insurgency. There are various terrorism-based and terror-based activities taking place within the soil of Bangladesh. They also take to various economic ventures in Bangladesh that gives them fund to further deploy these kind of tools in India. It also has to do with the maintenance of security and regional security in overall South Asian region. And then also India needs the help of Bangladesh in securing UNSC permanent membership. So the relationship is mutual and we have to take care and cater to the concerns of each other because we are permanent neighbors. Now the next concern and the next point that we can deal or we can put within the significance relationship is environmental concerns. There are around 54 cross-border rivers that India and Bangladesh share. Now this number itself tells and speaks a lot about the gravity of the issue that it could lead to, and it in fact has. Why? Because we have to demarcate the boundaries of rivers, which itself is not constant. It keeps on changing its ways and path. Secondly, there is also economic ventures that takes place in the form of generation of hydrothermal energy, then other resources also. So that, and there are also related ecological and environmental concerns when any river is situated. So these issues, transboundary rivers, like I said, ecological system, also water management issues if there are floods, let's say in these rivers, for example, Ganga and Brahmaputra. If there are floods in these rivers, then it's going to affect both of these countries. Bangladesh, as compared to India, is a downstream country, but it's going to affect both. So there needs to be constant communication between both of these countries so that proper disaster management actions and initiatives could be taken and cooperation could be ensured. Then the area of Sundarbans, which is ecologically very sensitive and very important. So that needs to be there. Both countries need to sit down and have a constant dialogue so that this area and this ecological entity could be conserved. Then there is an angle and the point of international cooperation. We have various forums such as SAC. One of them is also BIMSTEC, where we are cooperating constantly. There are other organizations also. Then there are various COP related to UNFCCC, because Bangladesh, being one of the small countries that we have, also suffers from climate change just as India is. India and Bangladesh both has a big or probably larger amount of coastal boundaries that makes it more vulnerable and susceptible to climate change, and it needs urgent adaptation and mitigation. That's why there are common grounds that needs to be put forward in UNFCCC. That's where the role and cooperation and collaboration between both of these countries come into play. So that is a broad idea about the significance of Bangladesh for India and India for Bangladesh. Having said that, this December 16, 1971 is the day when Liberation War of Bangladesh took place. It is, like I said, celebrated as a Vijay Diwas in India. So this speaks the relationship that we have been able to achieve or have been able to maintain with Bangladesh. Next, as we go ahead, we see let's see what is the progress that we have been able to achieve in the recent years, probably within the domain of Sheikh Hasina government. So we have achieved and signed various agreements in the aspect or from the aspect of connectivity. Various connectivity projects are there. To name some, you can note down Akhora and Agartala cross-border rail link. Then there is also Khulna-Mongla port rail line. And another would be, there is cooperation between Chittagong and Mongla port. Both of these ports actually connect the northeast to the eastern part of India across or via Bangladesh. So these are three infrastructure project line that you can remember that can help you in writing your mains answer with some conviction. Then there is a case of land boundary agreement. It is one of the successful case studies world over that we have seen how two countries can come forward, dialogue constructively and achieve a mutually acceptable solution, which came down in the form of 100th Constitutional Amendment Act in India's case, and in 2015 this was termed as Land Boundary Settlement or Agreement. In this, we swapped various disputed islands which were disputed and claimed by both of these countries, but they were accordingly divided and allotted to both of these countries, and now this issue remains and stands settled. So this is one of the good and the success, probably one of the significant success that we have been able to achieve. Then there is an argument of defense cooperation. We have various sorts of exercises taking place, not just in army, but also in also our military, army as well as navy. So if we talk about army, you must have heard about the exercise Sampriti. And like I said, both of these countries has larger coastal areas and the coastline. India itself has around, and Bangladesh has around 4,097 kilometers of borders that it shares with Bangladesh. And then there is exercise Bongo Sagar that takes place between the navies of these two countries. So these are two of the exercises that again you can remember, and if you are able to recall, it may help you to solve some of the prelims answers also. So in tourism sector, Bangladesh outnumbered tourists from Western Europe. So if we compare the number of tourists arriving in India, Bangladesh tourists were able to counter and probably overcome the number of tourists that are coming from Western Europe. So that tells you the degree and the number of people that are arriving in India for tourism. Second, if we compare medical cooperation, 35% of India's international medical tourists are coming from Bangladesh, and and in fact more than 50% of India's medical tourism revenue that we are generating is actually from Bangladesh. So this gives you an idea the level of cooperation that we have at the level of medical tourism or medical cooperation. Then there is a progress that we have been able to achieve in the genre of anti-India terror groups also. We have seen increasing cooperation between Sheikh Hasina government, the ex-Sheikh Hasina government and the present government of India, and it has been able to put all of these terror and insurgent groups at the bay. So this has been this progress so far, before of course the fall of Sheikh Hasina government. Now let's understand what are the existing challenges. But before that, to give you an idea, this map itself indicates that this is the boundary of Bangladesh. As you can see, this is the Agartala-Khora rail link that we have been talking about in terms of connectivity project. And so recently there was new section and it was inaugurated. So this already is in the working state, it is operational and gives you an idea what kind of connectivity cooperation that we have. This is Chattogram, this is Kolkata, and this is Agartala. Now remember that Tripura and Mizoram, this part, again has very critical borders with Bangladesh. We'll see, go ahead and analyze few issues that we have on these borders also. So going ahead, let's first of all see what are the existing challenges. At the present moment, what are the challenges that these both countries are facing and suffering through. First of all, in the arena of geopolitical challenges, there are border disputes, not just the coastal wise, there are also border disputes from Assam and Tripura region. The border are not clearly demarcated. There are certain buffer zones where there is more capacity or more tendency of illegal activities taking place. So there is not just an issue of illegal immigration, of course, that is there. There is a case of Rohingya immigration, but there are other issues such as drug trafficking or human trafficking. And then there are also weapons and funds are being transported across borders. Also, we can see the case of cow smuggling. So these are few issues taking place because of the undefined and undemarcated borders. Then we also have economic challenges, especially in the form of non-tariff barriers. We have lengthy, complicated procedures, complex procedures, also red tape is there. And like I said, we share 54 rivers. So it generates and accentuates the level, the clarity of the borders that we need to have, but we do not have. That's why this generates a more number of issues. Then connectivity challenges, although we have undertaken few projects, but the implementation and the execution speed has been slow. Also, the project outlay has been increased due to the delay in time. It has sometimes led to waste and expenditure. Then the project cost also multiplies, and it sets a bad precedent in terms of any neighborhood relations. There are also border disputes. Unless those disputes are settled, we cannot have better connectivity, because those connectivity slots has to be settled at the borders also. Then we have Komila Tripura land border. It is lengthwise, it is around 6.5 kilometers, but like I said, this is demarcated, it is still not marketed, and there are range of issues. There are also lack of infrastructure, be it at the border or the regions nearby. Then in the security challenges, we see terrorism. Like I said, it had been going on in Bangladesh for past decades, but with the cooperation of both of these governments, they were able to keep it at the bay and solve it. Then there is an insurgency. There are various groups like ULFA, what we known as by the name of United Liberation Front of Assam, also one from Tripura, National Liberal Front of Tripura, also National Democratic Front of Bodoland. So just to name or to give you an idea, these three organizations have been termed as insurgent groups, and these have been claimed or alleged to have been operating from Bangladeshi soil. Also, they go and venture into economic ventures in Bangladesh to get money, and again, of course, used again India. These are the security challenges. Now the China factor comes in. Of course, there is cooperation on the scale of infrastructure, energy, ports. All of this infrastructure development is taking place in Bangladesh with the China's help. However, it sets or probably generates issues because when India is a partner and China has been found to employ its debt diplomacy across the countries. So we have to take precautions so that Bangladesh do not give in to all those critical and compromised conditions. There is also Chittagong port where China and Bangladesh are cooperating. Cooperation is not an issue. However, if it turns negative to one of the parties, then it could be harmful. Then there are energy challenges, water sharing disputes. Like I said, unless we settle our boundaries, we settle the sharing of waters across 54 rivers, 54 cross-border rivers that India and Bangladesh has, energy generation from these rivers remains questionable. Or also, if some of them are operating, this always go into the legal hurdles and creates diplomatic issues also. Especially considering two large rivers that India and Bangladesh share, that is Brahmaputra and Ganga, that we need to solve at the urgent priority. Then Teesta River dispute. This issue has been highlighted time and again whenever it comes to India and Bangladesh relations. So we signed one agreement in 2011, some sort of differentiation, and around some percentage was given to Bangladesh, and around 37% was given to Bangladesh, and around 40% was given to India, and rest of it was ensured to maintain the minimum river flow. However, due to some diplomatic concerns or probably disagreement from the state of West Bengal, this could not be executed. So this issue still remains unsolved. Then there is an ongoing issue of Farakka barrage dispute. There is Farakka barrage in the Ganga River. At the Ganga River, there is diversion of water that takes place at the point where Ganga goes to Hooghly. But again, this has been disputed time and again by Bangladesh government. It has been raising the issue, but this issue has still not been able to come to the conclusion. So these are few of the existing challenges that we face apart from the ongoing situation that is in Bangladesh of minorities persecution. So let's see what could be India's approach given the ongoing situation that we have, and in order to ensure that this improvement and the situation in relationship further improves. So first of all is we have to raise the concerns, we have to raise this issue of attacks on minorities bilaterally with Bangladesh, also multilaterally probably at the using some UN mechanism, probably at the UN General Assembly or UN Security Council. This has to be highlighted so as to address this issue completely. Then there is support to popular expression. Like we saw in around 2006, India also supported popular will in Nepal. This was one good case. This could set or should be kept as a precedent to be followed in Bangladesh case also, where popular will could be supported. And third point is about the readiness to expand bilateral ties. If some of the areas has been taken care of, there are other areas which we have already highlighted. We need to ensure that the strength that we put in or the time that we take in should not be crossing the usual time, because that leads to other countries and other parties to be involved in that legal or probably conflict, and that leads to further degradation of the relationship. Then again, the cautiousness and discreetness. We need discreet marking of the borders, discreet solution to the problems that we have been facing for decades. Probably door open for close and mutually beneficial ties. Now that we are seeing the situation is not as normal as it was probably a year ago. So we have to take in consideration the ongoing situation and talk in terms of mutual benefits or probably mutual agreed situation of the relationship that India and Bangladesh are going to have. So we have to take care that this diplomatic constructive dialogue happens, and we remain open to be discussing with any of the parties that is in power in Bangladesh as long as it doesn't harm Indian interests. Then there's a case of joint task forces, and we need to put in smart border management also. We could use probably tools for it. We can put in some sensors there, some radars there, and also human effect has to be there. So some staff has to be deployed. From both sides it could take place. There could be some cooperative mechanism that could be put in, and we have to cater and ensure that issues like drug smuggling, human trafficking, cow smuggling, or even illegal immigration, that is in the form of Rohingya immigration, stop. Then the next step that we could take is digital connectivity corridor. A high-speed internet connectivity, probably in the form of optical fiber, could be laid that could not only generate jobs and employment, but could also increase the skills, could also enhance the relationship, and could lead to transfer and dissemination of informed information, and probably good information and the right information across the borders. It could also generate to increasing activities of e-commerce, generating more employment, and the case for FTA that has to be solved between India and Bangladesh. Now, why this is a primary concern and has to be addressed at priority? Because Bangladesh being a least developed country, this status is going to be probably retire in 2026. Bangladesh is set to lose this status in 2026, and with this status comes the opportunity that Bangladesh gets to supply and transport its products and goods duty free across India, across different countries' borders. Now, if this eliminates, again Bangladesh is going to face increased duties and the trade will suffer. If this has to be solved, India has to make sure that FTA signing and the agreement gets discussed at an urgency. Also, the second point that needs to be taken into consideration is China's angle has to be taken care of, because the RCEP agreement that Bangladesh has also signed. Now, China could use this route way to dump its products in India through Bangladesh. So, this provision has to be clearly discussed before we can think about establishing and signing FTA. So, this was all what we can do with respects to Bangladesh crisis. Now, time for the question of the day. You please try to solve it from the mains perspective. In the past, the relationship between India and Bangladesh has improved significantly as a result of India's assistance in the liberation war in Bangladesh. But in the present, it is not without its challenges, and you have to discuss it. Try writing one answer. Then the next topic of the day, which is about the rural development. Now, the context is President Draupadi Murmu have been conferring awards, Panchayat awards, and in the same she has spoken about the need for rural development. Why it is important? Because for any development, for any urban planning development or urban development, schemes like Smart City, Atal Rejuvenation, all of these projects, or even Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, we need to ensure that integral part is villages, because maximum population of India, which is around 64-65% of the population, it resides in villages. It is the villages which has the core, not just from the population angle, but also from the culture, the history, the traditions, and also the skills, which needs, of course, recognition, and the demography, and also this education levels that needs to be improved. So all of this starts from village, first of all, and any development cannot be completed. India cannot envision to be a developed country without villages being developed. So that sets the context, and it is from the syllabus of GS2 and GS3 as well. It could be from government policies, and it caters to inclusive growth and development. Now, first of all, we'll see what are the provisions that speaks of rural development in India. There are constitutional provisions also, there are laws, there are mechanism institutions. So first of all, starting from the Article 40, which is Directive Principle of State Policy. It argues and it tells the state to establish and organize panchayats for the comprehensive and holistic development of villages. Then in 1992, we also saw the constitutional amendment, or probably Panchayati Raj institutions getting constitutional status and structure via 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act. Under the same act, we saw the inclusion of 11th schedule, which has a list of around 29 functions that has been allocated to panchayats to be taken care of. And some of the examples are agricultural extension, land improvement, also land reforms, just to tell you a few of them. Then we have Ministry of Panchayati Raj at the central or the union level. We have departments of rural development or with the similar names at the state level. And then we have PRIs, which are nothing but Panchayati Raj institutions operating at the local level, what we also call as local self-government, and taking care of local issues. Gandhiji himself said that the soul of India lives in its villages. And why this was remarked? Like I said, everything begins from villages, especially in case of India, and probably this applies to everywhere, because the maximum people of around 64-65% population residing there, all the historical, cultural traditions have been preserved there. People have been migrating from there to work in cities and urban areas, and then probably later settling there. So the soul still resides in the villages. Now, moving ahead, we'll see how rural India's growth story has turned out. So, few of the successes that we have been able to witness starts with, first of all, agricultural reforms and technological advancements. In agriculture, we saw the deployment of high-yielding variety seeds right from the Green Revolution. Then there are schemes like Soil Health Card Scheme, which sets the balances between the fertilizers, the fertilizers and the combination that we are putting into the soil, so that their health and fertility is maintained and remains sustainable. We also have PM Krishi Sinchai Yojana, which caters to the irrigation demands and to the coverage of irrigation to the rural and remote areas and the fields across India. These are some of the reforms. Other reforms has also taken place in the form of funds, setting up funds, dedicated funds for agriculture, establishing post-harvest chains, marketing, storage, branding, establishing a national market, at least electronic national agriculture market. We have been trying to establish it in the in states also. Yes, but that has seen a limited success. Having said that, the next point is rural infrastructure development. In the infrastructure arena, we have seen schemes such as Gram Sadak Yojana, which have been developing all these all-weather roads to connect these rural areas to nearby cities and towns, which ensures not just the connectivity, transposition and probably transport and translocation of all these good and the right information, but also the availability and facilitation of various services, be it education, be it health, be it skill development, and others. Then we have Deen Dayal Upadhyay Antyodaya Yojana, National Rural Livelihood Mission. It gives them the basic minimum, at least to the segment of the rural population which needs work. So it provides them basic work so that they could sustain their livelihood. These are some of the schemes in the infrastructure development. There are others also in the electricity section. Then there are also generating market, and then there is water provision. So others are there also, but just to give you an idea, I have quoted 2-3. Then the case of rural entrepreneurship and skill development. So what the one scheme, Startup Village Entrepreneurship Program, this has been in place. This seeks to develop a vocational training. It also seeks to recognize the prior learning and prior qualities that the people living in rural areas have. In terms of financial inclusion, there are schemes such as Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, another is Mudra Yojana. This has been done, many millions of accounts has been opened, and now people are able to access all of these financial inclusion and the various facilities that comes within it. Then there is a case of digital connectivity, which we have BharatNet in the form of, so there was National Optical Fiber Scheme, which has been termed as BharatNet now, and the purpose is to connect all these villages and remote and rural areas digitally across India. There are also development of these service centers. The purpose is to ensure e-governance and various services. Like I said, it could be education, it could be healthcare, it could be employment through these e-governance tools or the centers that are located in these regional areas. Then the case of and the generating and setting and giving a location to all of these handicrafts and handicrafts, as well as various artisans who are looking for the right space to sell out their products. So there has been Hunar Haat scheme, which has been constantly, we have been constantly organizing these Hunar Haats from place to place. There is a provision of GI tagging where we are recognizing the speciality of the products that have been there for probably centuries now, and it is a specific quality of the product and the region there that recognizes it. So that is about the rural handicrafts and artisanal products. Now the last point in this which speaks about rural India's growth story is the healthcare and sanitation. So there are two aspects, healthcare and sanitation. In healthcare, we have undertaken Ayushman Bharat Yojana. It has seen its success. It has also an element of Grameen. Then we have Swachh Bharat Mission, Grameen, like I said. And with respect to sanitation, we have taken various efforts. Now, the purpose is, if we only cater to healthcare and not sanitation, many diseases in villages are related to improper sanitation and unhygienic conditions. We saw during COVID-19 that sanitation became of prime importance, because if we take care of that area, many diseases could be avoided and prevented. So that being said, this is some of the ideas and some points on speaking about India's growth story and the successes that we have seen and the programs that we have launched. Now, still there are certain hindrances and obstacles that we face in this arena of rural development. Why rural development still faces all those hiccups? So first of all, there is agricultural distress, which we see in the form of, in the worst cases, also in the form of farmer suicides. There are farmer indebtedness. There are always these protests going on. And now, why does this happen? Because most of them are dependent on monsoons, and monsoons are irregular, and they also lack access to irrigation facilities. Then they do not have proper information about which crops has to be grown as per the agroecological importance, which is very crucial that we are seeing in Punjab and Haryana. Apart from the farmer distress, if crops are not grown as per the climate and vegetation and the ecological productivity of a region, it may lead to other consequences. That could be in the form of water shortage, or it could be generation of other diseases, or reduction in the fertility of soil. The case is of the Punjab and Haryana. Then there is also an issue of inadequate access to market, also the credit in case of agricultural distress. Then it could also be unavailability of power. It could also be unavailability or probably unaffordable prices of fertilizers. And of course, fluctuating market prices. Even if the crop is selling out at a good price, farmers in most of the cases are not receiving those higher prices because of the presence of numerous intermediaries, which is one of the significant issue that needs to be solved. Then we have, second is a triple F issue. What is this? This is nothing but funds, functions, and functionaries that we see at the level of rural areas also, apart from panchayats and PRI institutions. So that is now in economic survey in 2018, which spoke about that these panchayats or PRI institutions are only able to generate 5% of the capacity, 5% of the funds as per their capacity. Now there are multiple reasons behind that, but this just highlights the incapacity and the need and the help and probably authority that these institutions need to cater to this triple F issue. There are functions, of course, within the functions that have been allotted to Panchayati Raj institutions, they have been limited by the staff, inadequate staff, also the lack of funds, but even the functions that have been given are not up to date or not up to as per the demand. Then there is inadequate rural infrastructure. So yes, there has been a provision in various schemes regarding roads, electricity, power, and others, but they all suffer. They have not been able to cater to each and every section there. Some part of the villages are not covered. Somewhere, if it is covered, then some houses or household are still out of the coverage. In 2023, there was a parliamentary panel which specifically talked about the poor quality of some of these roads that have been built under Gram Sadak Yojana. Then there's a point regarding that has to be made regarding inadequate access to quality healthcare. So quality healthcare is not overall available, NFHS 5, National Family Health Survey 5, which came out in 2019 and 20, it highlighted that only 65% of the household is having improved sanitation facility. Also, if you see, we just talked that around 64-65% population is residing in villages. But if you see by the coverage and the accessibility to hospitals, only 25 to 30% of hospitals are accessible to this amount of population. That again highlights the inaccessibility and the quality of healthcare. Then there are educational issues. This asset report, which regularly gets conducted by the Pratham NGO, it highlighted that only around 40%, or to be exact, around 38.5% of the class 5 children in government school in these rural areas were able to read or grade second level in rural areas. So this speaks of what? Probably learning gaps. So that highlights, even if children are getting enrolled, even if they are attending the classes, the level of understanding, the level of education and the knowledge that they are receiving is not up to the mark, and there are learning gaps. Then there is an issue of feminization of agriculture. Now that we see, maybe due to the cyclical jobs that people and the male members in the households, especially in the rural areas, have. So in off season, they migrate to urban areas for different jobs and employments, or for various other reasons also. Sometimes they settle in urban areas for the job, and whenever they get holidays, they go back to their original houses. But this leads to increased feminization of agriculture. You will see that without the ownership of the land, these females are overall holding and accounting and probably taking care of the agriculture in rural areas. So this is not an issue, but they have to be properly given the tools, accesses, and the right information to take care of the phenomena and the agriculture processes. So these are the challenges which we have highlighted. Now, what is the way forward? What are the possible steps that we can take which could bring the right way of bringing in the development in rural areas? So first of all, there has to be rural industrialization. Not just farm employment, but also non-farm employment, because there is an extent to that agriculture sector can itself generate jobs. If we have to generate more jobs, we also, at the same time, we have to cater and ensure that agriculture is holistic, all the concerns are addressed, but also the industrial, we take step forward in the industrial aspect and manufacturing sector also. That having said, there are some sectors such as agro-processing, it could be handicrafts, artisanal products, and various cottage industries, where village and rural areas have the comparative advantage, where they can produce the products at much lower cost than the urban areas. And they have their unique indications also. Like I said, GI tagging is being used. So they should utilize all these unique peculiarities about it and probably go into the manufacturing section also. Then for this also, we need to incentivize organization of MSMEs, micro, small, and other enterprises. So what would happen? This will lead to increased bargaining power, again probably increased organization, and like I said, scale of economies. We need to ensure that people get vocational as well as entrepreneurial skills to effectively put their skills in terms of production, manufacturing, and products that they are generating. Then the second point is on the digital transformation. Digital connectivity, we have been trying to act on it, probably by the initiative BharatNet, but our villages are at the suffering zone. So we have to ensure that this connectivity reaches to these rural areas also. Sometimes there are efforts and initiatives on ground, available on ground, but sometimes due to the lack of information and unawareness, these people living in these rural areas are not able to take use or utilize all of these schemes. So right information needs to reach them. And we need to ensure information and right information campaigns also, apart from ensuring the infrastructure that we need for digital transformation. So broadband connectivity, it could take place through innovative solutions such as low Earth orbit satellite. Why I am taking these names? Because they could act as decentralized way of increasing the broadband connectivity in these rural areas. There could be community driven initiatives, of course, after they are given some lessons on it. And we could also deploy tech mitras in panchayats. so as to converse all the people or the panchayat members with the technology and its usage, and the various schemes that they could take use of and get facilities via technology and adoption of IT. Then next point is about rural healthcare. In this, we can deploy hub and spoke model. What is hub and spoke model? There is one hub and then there are various spokes. So this hub could be a district hospital in case of rural healthcare. And what are these spokes? These could be primary healthcare centers that you usually found at the village level. So first of all, we should try to cater to health issues and healthcare at the level of village itself, primary healthcare centers, PHCs. Now, if we see that that institution or that mechanism is not able to cater to the original issue, then they can be suggested to move to the hub, which could be in the form of district hospital. So this could be overall architecture, but of course certain changes could be brought in as per the area and the situations. This model could be deployed. Then we can also take use of telemedicine, where people do not have to visit, but given that we have achieved digital transformation, we have achieved digital connectivity, and given people digital literacy also. So deploying architecture and infrastructure is not enough. We have to make sure that people know how to use it. Then there could be availability of mobile medical units so that they remain usable and accessible to people, and the provision of ASHA workers. They could be used because they are already good at getting assimilated and they are already familiar with the village situation. They already know the village members. They can take care of preventive care. They could also talk about health education, and they could also come handy in early disease detection in case of villages. There could be probable some startups also which could arise from these areas as well, because there are particular and peculiar situations in these villages. Some types of diseases are peculiar to them. So when that happens, these startups, these are the best situated to come up with some sort of startups for that. Then of course, agriculture, we have to make it sustainable. And so initiatives such as precision agriculture, where we are using inputs as per the required quantity and not probably unaccounted sort of fertilizers, seeds, where we are seeing a lot of wastage also, be it the power, be it the water. So precision agriculture, we can use remote sensing, we can use radars, we can use micro irrigation, we can again use soil mapping and data-driven decision support system. We can take to agroforestry, we can again take to integrated farming system, where we will also have horticulture, where we'll also have livestock, and we will also imply all sustainable practices of agriculture. We can take to organic farming. It could also be natural farming with nothing artificial has to be employed. Then yes, an element of renewable energy. We can see Prime Minister has launched a solar related scheme to promote this use of energy in case of agriculture also. So these are some of the schemes, some of the measures that we have employed. Somewhere we need to improve and somewhere we need to make certain changes so they can become more effective and the coverage and progress could be achieved. So that is regarding the measures that we can take. Now, to give you more idea on this, apart from the prioritized area, you can also increase, or probably we can organize FPOs. FPOs are farmer producer organization. It gives them the bargaining power. It gives them the collective power to discuss their issues. Also economies of scale could be achieved. Now the need is to divert, since feminization of agriculture is taking place, then why not we organize FPOs which are women led. The success of SSGs, self-help groups that we saw, primarily because of the leadership of women. Now this same success we could achieve in women-led FPOs also, if we take the proper identity and probably note down the areas of concern and of course cater to them. So these FPOs can talk about and can solve the issue of credit, various inputs, seeds, water, power, fertilizers, etc. Also the market linkage, because it's not enough that the farmer produce is there. We have to ensure that that produce reaches from farm to the market within the time. So there is less wastage. As we can see, every year we are seeing almost 16,000 crore worth of wastage that we are seeing. If this is saved, we of course can make some improvement in the wastage and storage wala section of agriculture. Then you can also organize rural tourism circuits. We are seeing there are many tourism circuits that we are seeing. People are also increasingly getting aware of these ideas. It could be ecological tourism. There are new ideas. There are homestay tourism. So why not rural tourism? Because the culture and the traditions there are very pristine. There we can see and witness and probably different type of local culture, heritage, traditions, food, cuisine, the clothes, fabrics, and different GI type products could also be sold. There are also natural attractions, and we can see every type of village in India, be it one from Rajasthan, or be it one in Northeast, or be it one from South India. So these are very unique. These could be used. Then we can use restaurant facilities in the form of pluck, cook, eat. This is one of form of innovation. Why? Because generally you can get these general and mainstream restaurants everywhere. But what if you take to new idea of where you can get, or you can pluck your own vegetables, then you can cook it, and you have been given a proper cooking area for that. Then second could be homestays. We are seeing that there is this concept increasingly being utilized in Uttarakhand. Recently, Prime Minister Modi also spoke about that. So similar concept we can also employ and use in rural tourism sector. Then it is about governance and decentralization. Like I said, self-help groups, various NGOs, and Panchayati Raj institutions. They need to come forward, take various steps, and ensure that decentralization takes place. Members from different household and villages do take part in all of these activities, and governance in the form of e-governance, various services, and e-panchayat also happen. Then we have regional development plans, which talks not just about the urban areas, but the regional development can only take place when rural areas are intrinsic part of that development plan. So those linkages has to be maintained, because you have to understand, for any activity that is taking place in urban areas, the basic human force, the basic workforce is coming from these rural areas. So that linkage has to be maintained. And if we generate and set up these basic facilities in rural areas, there will probably lesser need to migrate to these urban areas. Okay. Then we have to ensure that symbiotic growth is there, not just one section, only urban areas is progressing and developing and rural areas are left behind. This cannot be sustainable, and eventually this would lead to crash. So that's why rural urban areas both needs to be linked in a symbiotic way and needs to be developed. Then there could be concept of smart villages even before smart cities. Then urban clusters where rural areas are there, and of course nearby areas which could be counted as urban clusters. We can take use of public-private partnership to do the same, because many of the times we see there is lack of funds and we cannot always rely on government sources. Having said that, we have different facilities and tools to do that. So one of them could be PPP, that is public-private partnership, and second could be CSR, which is corporate social responsibility, which of course under it has a 2% criteria of its usage by any corporate organization. So this could be used for rural development also. There are certain activities that are allotted under this. Now we can promote regional development and rural development under it specifically, probably increase the quota under it. Then the case of rural bioeconomy. We have seen a lot of agriculture waste coming from these rural areas, but you have to take care of that rural waste, because it's not entirely waste. We can convert that waste into energy. We could also generate various bioproducts or biofuels and various biochemicals as well. But there are clearly institutions need to be set which take care of every part of the process, who collects those waste products, who processes it, where does it go after the processing, who converts it, and again who buys it, and who is the seller, and who is receiving those incentives. So clear institutions and mechanisms have to be set up. So this was about the measures. Now coming down to the question for this topic. Despite numerous government efforts, the development of rural India faces significant challenges. Analyze the major impediments and suggest innovative measures to accelerate inclusive development in rural areas. Like I have taken this topic, you can go through this and try to answer this question. Now coming to the simplified section of the day, starting with the first article, as we have been seeing the growing misuse of IPC section 498A, which deals with the probably atrocities committed against wife and probably from the side of husband and their relatives. But the point in the case is the increasing abuse of it and the fraud charges that are put up against the husband's family and of course against the husband. We have also witnessed recent suicide in the same case. So let's see what is this section 498A. Section 498 of IPC, which is Indian Penal Code, it actually criminalizes cruelty. The purpose was to save those wives which have been a constant who have been constantly abused for dowry related cases or probably have been put to domestic violence. So that was the primary target and the primary intention. However, in the recent decades and the recent times, we are seeing that more often than not, these laws are used by the much aware parties, much aware women who have been utilizing these laws to settle some personal scores or as a form of vendetta against the husband's family and of course against the husband. Various fake charges have been put up. Now the case and the innocence of the husband is not taken in the case until he proves it otherwise, and there are strict provision to arrest the parties, to make sure that harassment is done, and the responsibility for concrete evidence is also not from the wife's side. So that generates a lot of issues and leads to abuse of laws and the 498 section A of the IPC. There are again violation of Domestic Violence Act. There are violations on abuse of dowry related acts also, and this all relates to the same cause of criminality which we actually brought in from the perspective of saving wives, where in rural, remote and unaware reasons they are going through cruelty by their husband. Having said that, it was implemented to protect women from genuine abuse. Remember it, the key word is genuine abuse, but there are many cases where concerns have arisen over its misuse. So, like I said, it deals with cruelty inflicted by the husband or his relatives that may drive a woman to commit suicide, which we also have witnessed in some of the cases where the use and utilization of this section stands correct. But what if more cases than the actual ones are seen where these provisions are used in false cases? Then the punishment. One primary issue is that this section itself has another sub-provision where it recognizes such a flaw or such a case to be cognizable, such an act to be cognizable, non-bailable and non-compoundable. Now, what do I mean by this? If there is a provision of an act or the crime being cognizable, then police do not need arrest warrant. It can arrest the party and probably leave the part where it needs to get evidence for later. And that later is exactly not defined, and there is a lot of subjectivity. In this particular case, there are also provisions where in-laws, the family of the husband side could also be put behind bars, could be asked questions, even if they are not related or even if they are not involved. So there is a strong case of misuse of section 498 of IPC. Now, I would like to remind you that there has been cases of misuses and what generally happens as under the guise of the misuse or probably utilizing these laws. There are false allegations, like I have said, and Supreme Court has time and again highlighted this, that there has been misuse. These provisions have been misused to harass in-laws. And many of the times complaints have been found to be baseless. In many of the cases, High Court and Supreme Court itself had questioned the parties when they have come without any concrete evidence, just probably with their own made up accusations. So these are cases which Supreme Court has noted. Second, there is impact on families. Sometimes some of the family members and in-laws members are quite old. They are old age, suffering from many deformities. Some of them could be women. Some of them could be pregnant women also from the other side. But when the wife side registers a case, they all get into the case and they have to go through the proceedings. So police makes arrests and there is also an element of social stigma. Because anybody if gets arrested, there is a social stigma and presumption by a section of population that they must have done something. So they loses reputation apart from the arrest that they go through and the torture and the harassment that they have to face. Then there are arrests without investigation. Like I said, there is no proper course of investigation once those arrests are made, because the clause is of cognizable recognition of that charge. So what it leads to detentions and long-term detentions of these people, and which in many cases have been found to be unwarranted, uncalled. Then there are judicial observations. Just to highlight with you one Supreme Court case, in Arnesh Kumar versus State of Bihar in 2014, Supreme Court had given strict guidelines to the magistrate, even to the police, before making arrest. Probably to go through the basic processes to make sure at least some evidence is there to present a case. Because even if genuine or non-genuine cases without evidence comes, what is the procedure or what is the mechanism for one police officer to get to the fact of the case if the proclaimed abuse has taken place or not? So this law has provisions, but it lacks mechanism to ensure that subjectivity is eliminated. So that was about 498 section A. In gist, now that cases are going on, we'll see over the course of time how this folds out, and we will tell you other things about it. Now what can be done is from both sides, from wife side also, from husband side also, and from police also. There has to be clear-cut guidelines, mechanism to ensure that the evidence is concrete and not just in some sort of claims, alleged claims, because that sets in a problem, and not just the husband but their entire families. You could put up multiple, or the wife could put up multiple cases against the husband without any actual evidence on ground. So that needs to be settled. Police and the magistrate has to be more concerned and cautious before giving the judgment on the basis of those claims. Both parties has to be ensured that they have been given right to hear. Also, the case of corruption from the judiciary side, especially at the level of lower judiciary, is very significant and is very horrific. So the parties, the judge that has been given the responsibility of disbursing justice, when that party assumes or takes corners or takes sides on probably for various benefits, that it raises a question on judiciary itself. So these three sides has to be the proper norms to be there, so that the concerns of these three sides could be catered. Now the next article of the day in the simplified section, which is about India accounts for half of malaria cases in Southeast Asia in 2023. So I speak it on the behalf of WHO report, that is World Malaria Report 2024, that has been published by World Health Organization recently. And it says that in Southeast Asia, there are overall from the global cases perspective, Southeast Asia accounts for around 1.5% cases. And within South Asia, it is India that accounts for almost half of them. So like I said, global, and within the global, 1.5% is within Southeast Asia. And when we talk about Southeast Asia in total, India accounts for almost half of them, as per the 2023 data. Second comes Indonesia, which actually caters to 1/3 of them within the Southeast Asia. So India and then the Indonesia. If we talk about the progress that Southeast Asia has seen, yes, it also has seen. It's not like that these are the negative. Of course, these are some areas that needs to be taken care of. But we have also seen achievements. We have also seen successes over years. Right from 2000 to 2023, we have seen the cases that have been decreased from around 29 million, to be specific 28.8 million, to around 4 million in 2023. Now in 2022 and 2023, in this 1 year, there are 4 countries that have registered reductions in the number of diagnosis or in the cases registered in case of malaria. What are those 4 countries? First of all is India, second is Nepal, third is Indonesia, and fourth is Bangladesh. So these 4 countries have seen the reduction, while for the same year 2022, 2023, another 3 countries, South Korea, Thailand and Myanmar, these three countries have seen increase. So you can note this down. They may be helpful in answering some prelims or prelims based questions. Now the success that we have been talking about, the decreased number of cases from 2000 to 23, the largest share goes to the initiatives and efforts that Indian government have taken, and almost 17.7 million fewer, that means 17.7 million cases have been reduced, and almost a 93% decrease in case incidence that has taken place right from 2000 to 2023. So this was the part which of course shows the positives and hopeful future. But disease still remain a global concern. Why? Because even if we have been trying to seek achievements, we have been trying to undertake various efforts in India, there are other countries where this is already and is still a concern. One of them is African region, which accounts for the maximum malarial cases in the world. And this has been highlighted by the WHO. And meanwhile, in 24, almost 44 countries have been certified malaria free by WHO. Now 44 countries and one territory also. So these 44 plus 1 have been certified malaria free. This factoid could be of importance in your prelims exam. Please remember this. So this was regarding this. Now coming to India's malaria efforts or malarial elimination efforts, we can see that India have undertaken a framework for next 15 years, or right from 2050 to 2030. In 2024 itself, the year that we are in, we had kept a target of eliminating category 1 malaria. Now you may ask, what is category 1? So there are 3 categories under this framework that we have kept for malarial infections. Category 1 infection is covers those districts which has low transmission rate. If those areas has low transmission rate, so they are probably on the edge of the they are probably close to eliminating this kind of disease. So they are put under the category 1. Under category 2, there is moderate transmission, the district with moderate transmission, and they need some control measures. So yeah, more intensive than the category 1. And the category 3, which needs the highest level of participation and involvement, and of course intensive intervention, because these are the high transmission district. For 2024, we have kept the target of eliminating malaria, that is 0 indigenous cases in category 1 district, which I said are the low transmission districts. Now, overall, we have to eliminate malaria by 2030 as per India's national framework for malaria elimination. Now, in India, we also cooperate with WHO. We also have been a participant of Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria, where we give and take technical support, and also we receive fundings to eliminate or to work on malaria elimination programs in India. So this is the one effort that we undertake at the global level. Then second is, it also works with WHO on surveillance. Unless a disease is diagnosed, under some surveillance is there, it's very difficult to cater and to reduce this number. We also work on capacity building, right from staff to infrastructure to knowledge, skills, the drugs, as well as certification process for malaria elimination. Then we have kept this target of targeting these 2 states, especially Odisha and Jharkhand. Why? Because they have high burden of malaria, and we have kept this target by 2025. So remember 3 key years. By 2025, we have a target for Odisha and Jharkhand. By 2024, we had the target of eliminating malaria in category 1 districts. And by 2030, overall, this framework has to be executed. So this is regarding this. Now, moving on to the next article. This is from the explained section. This reads and talks about the animal behavior in general. And they have conducted and given various examples, not just from one animal, but overall animal kingdom, including lion, tigers, cats, and various others, including leopards also. So this talks about that there are many reasons, and animals, as you can see there, we have registered and seen many cases in all of these national sanctuaries, national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, tiger reserves, elephant reserves of animal death. Now, there could be multiple reasons for it. One prominent reason is animal-man conflict, but let's just keep that aside for time being. Let's see what could be the other reasons apart from accidents. So yes, there could be accidents. That also includes man and animal conflict. Now let's see by the explanation of this article what are the other possible reasons. Now, why am I taking the discussion? Because there could be possible questions on animal-human behavior under environment or animal kingdom. There could be question in prelims. Now, what are the reasons? As per this article, first of all is that there could be a tendency among animals of abandonment. Now, that could be due to that they could perceive some threats to fathers and grandfathers, especially male species. And this pattern and behavior has generally been witnessed among the male species as compared to female ones. Female also take to different routes, but this particular behavior of abandonment has been witnessed more among the male species. Then there could be fights, animal wars, and then one of the parties that wins captures the rival territories. Then they could end up killing predecessors, infants, and it could also mean that they are eliminating the future competition. Also, this, like I said, this behavior also in particular witnessed more among the male members and lesser among female members. Then there is a principle of resource management. Sometimes, let's say the female gives birth to offspring and it had many offspring, some weak and some probably good enough in health. But just to take care of at least some of them survive, the female itself, the female mother or the mother herself kills its offspring because it applies the principle of resource management. So that is one of the predictions why animals behave that way. Then there are cases of inexperience. Sometimes first-time mothers are not able to control and get in terms with the new conditions that they are witnessing after the birth of the first baby. There could be infections and the case of hormonal imbalance in mothers, which could increase their anxiety. This could increase their stress. It could also lead to aggression, and that could be depicted or demonstrated in form of fights, quarrels, and probably killing of the babies. So these are some of the examples, just to give you an idea. Once you're reading this article, you will see, like in Gwalior Zoo, tigress Meena invested 6 months in her female cub, who was born week before killing it in September 2022. Her other cub, a healthy male, did well. So yes, she chose which one will survive, which one will not, should not survive. At least to save one, she killed the other one. So that is one of the examples. Now there are other reasons also. Like I said, there could be stress, insecurity, and when those situations arises, there could be desperate attempts to protect. There could be protection instinct or to save one's own life. It could lead to, again, quarrels and fights and probably eventual deaths. This behavior is not particularly to one species of animal. This has been witnessed among cats. This has been witnessed among leopards, lions, tigers, and other animals also. But just to give you an idea, some of the examples have been given in the article, so you can note them down. Then this is not restricted to wild environments only. The same behavior has been witnessed within the captive environment also. So if there is any conservation reserve, is there any biological park, you can also witness within the zoos also, this behavior and these behavior patterns could be witnessed. But one thing you have to understand that this behavior is on the basis of the patterns that have been noted. Nothing could be said for sure. So these are probable reasons, and there have been cases where female member has also killed the male member, the probable father of the infants, for different reason, and there is no proper understanding and documentation of the reason why that happened. So that remains subjective also. An angle of subjectivity is there, and we are not really aware of what kind of pattern in animal behavior is shown. This actually talks about the limited understanding of the animal behavior that we have, but overall this article gives us few reasons why animals can kill their offspring, apart from the different accidents that may happen. Now the next article. Indian scientists have successfully developed novel gene therapy in case of Haemophilia, which is a blood disorder, a genetic disorder, a rare disease, and it is a one-time solution. Why? This is the highlight of the day, one-time solution, because whoever suffers from this rare disease, the patient has to constantly and frequently take two injections. Injections of what? Infusions of factor 8. What is, in biological term, this is something that leads to blood clotting substance, which is necessary in our bloodstream to ensure that there is no constant continuous flow of blood if, let's say, we go through any bruise or any accident. So that is necessary. Now read more about this. So hemophilia, like I said, it's a hereditary disease, it's a genetic disease, and it could lead to fatal bleeding episodes, and in worst cases, death. There have been many patients across the world, but it remains one of the rare diseases. And it requires frequent injections, like I said, of factor 8. This is a very important information, which is nothing but a clotting factor, helps in establishing and generating the clotting ability of blood. And now, this has been constant and continuous injections of this substance into the blood. Now scientists have generated another new gene, which has been able to give one-time solution by scientists. Now, what is the principle? What is this sort of one-time solution that has required the need to do away with this constant and frequent infusion of factor 8? So the thing is, a new gene has been developed, and if it is put, let's say, into the mechanism and metabolism of human body, this will regenerate this factor itself that leads to clotting abilities in the blood. If that happens, there will be no need to take two constant and continuous injections. So that is why it is said to be one-time solution. Like I said, it is gene therapy. It is promised to be one-time solution. A gene is introduced in it, and enough of the clotting factor is generated. So this was the gist. And now about hemophilia A. What is A? So there are two kinds of hemophilias. Hemophilia A remains the more common version of the condition and is caused by the absence of this factor 8, which I have continuously mentioned. Now India itself, in India's case, India sees around 40,000 to 1 lakh patients with this disease, which is not a small number. But if you compare with other disease, which has numbers probably in lakhs and millions, this disease is categorized under rare disease in India's guidelines and Amici regulations. Now, if you see the nature of the condition and relatively low number of patients, if you compare it with other diseases, its number is relatively low. So the treatment remains very expensive, and this is out of the affordability of the common people. And whoever suffer also has to see the lack and inaccessibility of the various drugs, lack of research and development, and that is also the case in India. In India, approx 2.5 crores is being spent over a matter or over a span of 10 years for the patient who is suffering from this disease, which is one type of rare disease. So this gives an idea why this has been categorized a rare disease, and this specific provision of rare disease, which of course it is less in number, therefore less probability of research and development, drugs and affordability. So for that, Indian government has come up with national policy for rare diseases, because there are many other rare diseases also in 2021. First of all, the concern and the primary cause remains awareness and prevention. So we have to promote research. Sometimes people are not even aware of the rare disease that they are suffering through, because they have not seen in their vicinity, or they have not seen many people suffering from it. And early diagnosis of rare disease is also important, because there are also stages of it. If it is diagnosed early, initially, maybe this could be catered and this could be again cured. Then there is a provision financial assistance of around 50 lakhs up to for group 1 diseases. So there are again various groups in depending on the intensity and the stage of disease that one is suffering through. It comes under the Rashtriya Arogya Nidhi for eligible patients. Eligibility, for ensuring eligibility, patient has to be below poverty line. It has to come from the weaker economically marginalized section. Then it can claim the financial help. Also, there are centers of excellence that have to be established under the policy to ensure, and they have named AIIMS Delhi and PGI MER Chandigarh and others to provide specialized care with regards to this disease. Also, there is a provision of fund which is known by the name of Rare Disease Fund, so that all of these activities which requires fund, which require infrastructure, which require payments to be made to the staff and to the doctors and the human force that is working in the medical persona, that could be catered and addressed. So this is it. And now the last article of the day, which talks about SC appoints Amici Curiae to examine carbon emission routes. So without and despite the heading, the concern is, what is Amici Curiae and why does SC appoints it? What is the need, and is it from whose side does it fight? So let's read more about it. Just to give you the context, NGT has filed a case in which a party who was claiming improper regulation or working of environment impact assessment has launched a case, and in that Supreme Court has appointed this expert. What sort of expert? We will discuss. Has expert in the form of amicus curiae to deal and know all the rules, regulation, norms within the environmental aspect, starting from Environment Protection Act and other act that could be employed to ensure that these activities of environment impact assessment are actually taking place on ground. So this is the context. Now let's see what is this amicus curiae. In India, as you have seen in MC Mehta, just to give you what had happened in the past, there was one case, MC Mehta versus Union of India. This is quite popular case where senior advocate Harish Salve was appointed as amicus curiae to assist in landmark environmental cases. That case is not being the case, but the point here of importance is that he was appointed as amicus curiae. And now what was the purpose? It was also happened in another case which was related to human rights and public interest, which was known by the name of Samaj Parivartan Samuday versus state of Karnataka. Here also the issue of mining, illegal mining was going on, and Supreme Court again appointed another amicus curiae. So why did these courts keep on appointing amicus curiae? First of all, it could be a person, it could also be an organization. You have to remember the actual goal and the intention to establish it. The intention is to get the legal expertise or probably expertise on the areas which has complex legal and technical issues. So sometimes some of these judges do not have that because they may also pertain to political or probably policy areas. So that's why courts also need the help of these legal experts. And it is a neutral party. It is not a party to any of the. It is not going to support any of the parties that is involved in the case. It is just going to be there to give the information and establish the facts. It is a help to the courts. So it is also said or called as friend of the court. It gives expertise, insights, or relevant information with respect to the cases or with respect to the topic that Supreme Court has highlighted or any of the courts has highlighted. Appointment, like I said, judiciary itself appoints it in cases where additional expertise or independent assistance is required. It is mostly there are senior advocates. It could be law firms also. It could be law scholars or NGOs are even have been taken use or have been used in certain cases. Now participation, if amicus curiae participating, that doesn't mean the information and the facts that that has been given by the amicus curiae are binding on the court or on the parties. No, it is just to help with the process of the information. It's not binding, it's advisory, it's a legal expertise, and they of course do not act as advocates for any of the parties but just stay there as a neutral perspective. So this is some of the highlights and the provisions that are there with respect to amicus curiae in India. I hope this session was fruitful for you. Take care. All the best.